first match of the best-of-5 semi-final here.
We trained all year for that moment.
ROCCAT pick up game number 1.
All the games were pretty much close.
And ROCCAT win game number 4. It's all down to the final game of the day.
Nobody expected us to play so good versus Fnatic. All of the matches were pretty close.
Fnatic will be the first European team to book their place at Worlds. So close here to Fnatic, yet so far somehow as well.
We're really disappointed with our semi-final against Alliance because we know we could have done better.
Alliance will take game 1 from SK Gaming.
I'm really salty. I think we could have won.
It's going to be Alliance, ladies and gentlemen, who will represent Europe at the World Championships. The super team has done it. SK versus ROCCAT will be a fantastic game tomorrow.
This best-of-5 is going to mean everything. I don't care about what people say, and I don't care about if the crowd is cheering for us or not. I just want to go to Worlds.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the European League of Legends Championship Series, coming to you live from Gamescom in Cologne, Germany. Today, the final spot for Worlds is on the line for the European teams. I'm EFU Shock supporter, joined by Trevor Quickshot Henry, as well as our special guest analyst, Mitch Krepo-Voorspoels.
It's a pleasure to be here, EFU Shock supporter, and finally somebody that can pronounce my name right.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. And either SK Gaming or ROCCAT will join Alliance and Fnatic as the European representatives in the 2014 World Championship. But before we get to today's battle, let's take a quick look back at yesterday's semifinals. Of course, first up, it was Fnatic versus ROCCAT. It went all the way, 5 games. And to me, even though Fnatic qualified, obviously, ROCCAT left a very good impression.
They did in some ways, but in other ways they really disappointed. I didn't get their style. They played these non-wave clear compositions, but still wanted to split push, so they picked Nidalee twice. I mean, they had split push picks, but then they ended up grouping anyway. So they played 2 games with Nidalee, but they didn't split. So they ended up grouping like every game, yet they had no wave clear, so it was really wonky, and it felt like all ROCCAT can do is go forward, and if they somehow hit a brick wall, then the game is over for them. But their skirmishes were really good, and that's what I'm looking forward to see. Like, is SK's strategy gonna take it, or is ROCCAT's just skirmishing skill gonna come out on top today?
I actually completely agree with that, and it was a weird series because games 1 and 2 were very one-sided, was determined by sort of map play that led to a dragon fight. And once the team got control, they sort of executed quite flawlessly. But games 3, 4, and 5, both of the squads kind of got a bit ropey and a little sloppy in places. ROCCAT stepped up. They definitely impressed. Fnatic looked a little scary, but they delivered. Went to game 5, and in game 5 they got a lead. They closed out the game. It's going to be an interesting series for ROCCAT because we don't know at what level they're going to perform against SK.
Yeah, very good point. And of course, we also had Alliance versus SK Gaming. That was our second semifinal. It went 4 games, and honestly, Alliance, they did qualify, but underperforming by a little bit.
Yeah, I talked to the guys before the match. I was really happy to see my old teammates again, and they were super confident. They won all of their scrims so quick that they actually had to ask teams like, hey guys, we want to play longer than 15 minutes. Please let us practice late game. And the thing is, the LCS stage is always a little different. People play a little more passive, a little more wary. Some dude might come up with a sick play that you don't expect him to do, and it showed. But they stayed calm, took it in only 1 loss, 3 wins, and then I think they're ready for the final, and they're looking sharp. I saw some of their scrims, and yeah, they ain't messing around anymore.
I have to agree. You know, at the beginning of the series, Wicked was very uncomfortable. Played Alistair game 1, I was not convinced. Played Alistair game 4, and completely changed my viewpoint. He delivered as he found some confidence and warmed up on the stage in terms of the pick. The other thing is, SK, they didn't lose laning phase. They didn't fall behind early on. This has been a problem that's plagued them all year long, and they shook it off against the #1 seeded European squad in the summer split. Up to 20-30 minutes, SK were not behind. So they were there, but the problem for them is late game decision making. If these games go late, as we're expecting them, because it's ROCCAT, SK can't make the same positional mistakes or they'll be punished.
Yeah, we'll see what they do today, but now we're going to turn an eye towards the 2015 Spring Promotion Tournament. The bottom 3 teams from the summer split have made their selection of who they will play from the European Challenger Series to try to hold on to their spot in the LCS. With the first pick, 6th place Millennium have chosen to take on the 3rd place Unicorns of Love. Next, 7th place Gambit selected the 2nd place finishers SK Prime, which means the Copenhagen Wolves will go head-to-head with H2K Gaming. We just found out which teams the LCS teams have picked, and to me, Millennium, okay, Unicorns of Love was the 3rd place team, but they had such an aggressive playstyle that was quite daunting.
That's going to be quite a fun series to watch because both teams like to go very pick-heavy, very aggressive in your face, and whoever can get the picks earlier or faster might come out ahead. On the topic of H2K Gaming and SK Prime, they both performed to a higher standard than we were expecting in the final, but H2K were very close to not winning it. Some poor decision-making during the course of that best of 5. If they make those same mistakes against the likes of the Copenhagen Wolves or Gambit, there's going to be problems. I think it's going to be an interesting series, and we'll have to see if a challenger squad can make it into the LCS. Nobody did in this summer split, and we'll see if a new team can, new faces can, for the spring split next year.
Yeah, I've watched a fair bit of the EU challenger scene, and one of the players I liked the most was Julius, because whenever I turned my stream on, he was making a play. But he's no longer part of the scene anymore, so I actually have not that big of an idea of who's going to take it. However, it's going to be interesting to see these teams, because they have to travel all the way to America this time, so not only will they be playing for pressure to get into the LCS, they'll be dealing with jet lag, they'll be playing a best of 5, which is rough, and it'll be very interesting to see how these new players, full of talent and motivation, face off against these old dogs that just want to keep their jobs. Relegations aren't fun. I've had to play them twice already, so I prefer watching them.
I can understand that. Well, you mentioned it already. We'll be bringing you those matches live from Los Angeles starting on Tuesday, September 9th at 7 p.m. Central European Summer Time, and that's 10 a.m. Pacific. Now, as we wind down the Summer Split playoffs, let's take a look at the bracket. Coming up today, we have the 3rd place match between SK Gaming and ROCCAT. Then on Sunday, Alliance and Fnatic will go head-to-head in the finals for the right to be called Summer Split champions and to take that #1 seed heading into Worlds. So, guys, here on the stage today, SK versus ROCCAT. After everything we've seen yesterday and you guys talked about, I feel like it's going to go 5 games again, and it's going to be in the little things for these teams.
I'm just interested to see how they cope with their losses, because I've played the same sort of match last year where we faced off Gambit, and both teams, initially coming into the tournament, there were 4 teams for 3 spots. So you think, oh, my odds are really good, I'm going to make it to Worlds. And then you lose your first match, and then you realize there's 1 match to go, 1 more spot. There's 2 teams. We both lost yesterday. Who's going to go on tilt? Who's going to be calm? Who learned from their mistakes yesterday? Because both teams had pretty big mistakes in their play, like ROCCAT's pick and play style, and then even SK had a lot of build errors. Who's going to fix that in such a short time?
I actually like that point, because the mental fortitude that I think ROCCAT will bring to the table might be superior. They went 3-2. They were considered the underdogs by a very large margin in that series, and they surprised a lot of people. I actually feel like for ROCCAT, picks and bans is also going to be very, very important. Crepo mentioned the wave heal, or lack thereof, in their series yesterday. If they can bolster a smarter Tom position and play to it properly, they may even be able to push SK. And if they can push SK to the late game and SK makes those same positional errors, they're going to take the series. So for me, it is going to be a matter of who can fix the problems that they had yesterday more effectively for today's series, because they both did perform at a higher level than anybody was expecting.
Yeah, whoever I talked to from both teams said, well, we could have won it. Let's see how they can recover today. Remember to go to lolesports.com for more info, and don't forget to click the thumbs up for a team you think will take today's series. We'd also like to hear from you on Twitter. Write to us at @LOLesports and tell us so much on the line today. Which player do you think will make the biggest impact on today's 3rd place match, and why? Mitch?
I'm looking at Vander. I don't necessarily think he can make the biggest impact, but I want to see what he's going to do, because I feel if ROCCAT's going to win this, they have to break through SK's bottom lane, because if they do that, they have a good shot at winning, and I think Vander is a really solid, good support player. And I hope he gets his stretch, I hope he gets in his comfort zone, and I hope he just starts playing like he can play, and then we're going to see some beautiful games.
Yeah, his thresh yesterday was fantastic. I'm going to look at Jesiz from SK. I feel if he can get onto a champion and make plays happen. Yesterday, his Ari against Alliance was solid. He managed to survive the laning phase. He went toe-to-toe with Froggen, and while he didn't necessarily win, he wasn't necessarily beaten either. And when he found the opportunities to blow somebody up, he can. So I think for SK, the performance will hinge on Jesiz and what he can do in the course of the 5 games.
Yeah, my vote is going to go to Jankos, who was also extremely impressive today, but we've repeated it so much yesterday already. Be sure to send those to us using the hashtag LCS, and we'll read your responses later in the show. Now we're ready to get into the game, so let's send it over to the caster desk to get things started.
Thank you very much, Shocks. I am Lee D-Man Smith, and today I am joined by Joe Miller and Marcin as we get into the game. It's SK Gaming. They're going to be taking on ROCCAT in a best-of-5 for the 3rd place and all-important seat at the World Championships.
Gonna be an amazing game. From what we saw yesterday, ROCCAT, for me, really delivered. SK, in my eyes, had the chance, possibly you could say, to take down Alliance. ROCCAT, on the same token, could have beaten Fnatic as well. Yep. It's going to be an amazing game.
And it's going to be a very aggressive game because yesterday, Jankos, he was just everywhere. And SK Gaming was so aggressive in the early game as well. Like, these teams, they're going to look to just fight constantly.
So let's get a little bit more in depth on each position, starting out in the top lane, of course. Both fredy and Xaxus have played very well in their quarterfinals and semi-final matches. You could argue that fredy, well, he won his top lane battle in 3 out of the 4 games versus Wicked, while Xaxus, well, he also gave SOAS a serious run for his money.
And it's funny to look at these 2 top laners because they're very different in terms of style. We have the innovative Xaxus who brings out new picks and always changes his playstyle a little bit. And then we just have the consistent, steady fredy in the top lane for SK Gaming. He played Aatrox and Maokai yesterday, and then Italy was banned in every single game by Alliance. And that seems to be his champion pool at the moment. So I actually wonder if we're going to see ROCCAT target towards him, and we have to see him bring out some new picks.
And of course, in the jungle, we have Svenskeren versus Jankos. And Svenskeren wasn't, for me, as present as I'd really hoped him to be yesterday. Same, however, can't really be said for Jankos, though. He once again showed he's a massive influence on how ROCCAT's game turns out.
Yeah, I agree. Jankos was my clear MVP for the semifinal. Even though ROCCAT ended up losing the game, Jankos just did everything correct. He ganked every single lane, he managed to do well in team fights, and he was just impressive to look at for the entire series. SK Gaming and Svenskeren had some good games too. And it's funny to see when SK Gaming actually play, Svenskeren likes to just invade into the enemy jungle constantly. And I do think that's going to be the way to shut down Jankos and going to be the target for SK and Svenskeren. Just full focus on getting in towards Jankos.
Well, in the mid lane, Jesiz is facing Overpow this time around. And Jesiz, well, he certainly struggled against Froggen in the semi-finals, never really got going. However, unlike Alliance, SK's team comp does not revolve around Jesiz dominating his lane. Meanwhile, for Overpow, well, he put a heavy priority on picking Fizz. And you got to question that because he actually lost all 3 of those games where he pulled Fizz out.
Yeah, that was very strange by ROCCAT, to be honest. We talked about how maybe they were afraid of XPEK playing the Fizz here. But matter of the fact is, Overpow, he fell behind in CS in every single game against XPEK. It didn't exactly help that he played Fizz. He put a lot of focus on getting kills. It was just never enough, and we have to question his build. No hourglass before the 3rd item, so he could never really join these fights here. And he honestly might be stuck on Fizz again, because Zillion is most likely going to be banned by SK Gaming in every single game here. Jesiz, on the other hand, has improved a lot lately. He did have some issues against Froggen, but we also have to say playing against Overpow compared to Froggen is very different, so I actually expect him to win the laning phase here.
So the AD carries are, of course, CandyPanda and Celaver. And Celaver was definitely the standout AD carry for me yesterday. We said that he needs to step up, and he did it in a really big way, even forcing bans to his champions. And Kog'Maw is probably the big question mark between these two right now, with them both doing well on it yesterday.
Yeah, we can definitely see a lot of focus on their hyper carries and picks and bans here. Wouldn't even be surprised to see some bans of first picks like we saw yesterday. But Celaver, he's a bit like Jesiz actually. He's gone from being one of the weak points of his team to suddenly now he's actually one of the carries, like big time carries. And we always talk about how he can get a hyper carry. ROCCAT believes in him and he will do well and he can carry in the late game, in the team fights. CandyPanda, well, same as always for him. He's great still, and he constantly performs at the top level after so many years. It's just impressive. SK Gaming knows what he can do, and we also know what he can do here.
Yeah, he's been around for a very long time. Finally, of course, we move on to the supports. That is nRated versus Vander. Both have been performing well for their teams. nRated playing a couple of unorthodox champions, pulling out support Kale to great effect. And Vander, well, he seems to be back on form, performing some amazing Thresh plays yesterday.
Yeah, some great plays by Vander. Was a little bit surprised he didn't favor going Morgana. A single time he wasn't banned, he didn't want to pick it, even though it's actually been his main champion. If you look at like the summer split here, maybe it's going to change today, because SK Gaming did put a lot of focus on getting Morgana. They did, however, ban Nami, which was the second champion Vander played yesterday here. So a small support battle going on in picks and bans. And it's also fun to see we have nRated, the defensive disengaged support, and then we have Vander who likes to make the big plays if he can.
So those are the lineups. Both played solid semi-finals, and how are we going to compare these two teams now? Because we were always calling SK mini alliance.
So I looked at the early game for both teams. SK Gaming were always doing well in the early game and the laning phase. And if you look at the side of ROCCAT, they actually had big issues against Fnatic. Overpow and Xaxus often fell behind in CS, where fredy and Jesiz did okay or well enough in their lanes. So we can see SK Gaming here put a lot of focus on these solo laners and therefore open up for Svenskeren to jump into the jungle, find Jankos, and keep him there so he can't go around ganking like he loves to do.
Well, SK Gaming dominated ROCCAT in the summer split, but after losing a close series against Fnatic yesterday, Jankos and his team head into this match with a lot of momentum, while Jesiz and SK, they got something to prove.
In the past, we don't have a good record against SK.
So SK is like our nemesis. Pretty much we always lose against them.
It definitely gives us a mental edge again going against them, because they know that we know their style and how to win against their style.
Fredy and Svenskeren are really crazy aggressive. These two are the main threat in the SK.
I think we might have the edge, but at the same time, it's a team game. ROCCAT have shown that if they're one thing, they're a really good team. Of course, we are confident we can win because we just went 2 and 3 versus Fnatic. So now no one is scary, but we will still need to try our best to actually win the game.
I did not have the same desperation to go to Worlds as my teammates maybe, but after losing to Alliance, it made it clear for me how much I wanted to go. And I think this best of 5 tomorrow is gonna mean everything.
I'm not sure fredy and nRated would agree with Jesiz on that remark, but they absolutely do want to go to Worlds now, that's for sure.
And that's the big thing, right? And we said that both of these teams in Spring Split maybe even surpassed expectations, but Spring Split is one thing. This is where it really counts now. Worlds on the line. You've been building up to it for an entire year. Not to make it there is a big loss.
And I really also love the fact that ROCCAT in this video here, they respect fredy and Svenskeren so much. The two key players, in my opinion, for shutting down Jankos early game. So I like the fact we think alike here. And we can also see Xaxus put a lot of focus on getting a counter pick against fredy here and maybe shut him down. Because he's the guy, once he falls behind, he often doesn't do anything.
Yeah. It was good to see fredy as well talking about ROCCAT, saying, you know, if there's one thing we know, they are a great team when it comes to teamwork. So let's check out and see who you think will be heading to the 3rd team position at Worlds. We'll find out who it is. According to you guys, well, 58% of you believe ROCCAT after their fantastic best of 5 yesterday. Winning over a lot of fans, I feel, here.
Yeah, definitely gained a few fans here because they did play really well. Could have won the last game as well. I just have to question the pick and ban phase, and I believe they'll fix it for today.
And I think fantastic is actually the right word there, because it was a really frantic game. Both teams really showing, which is kind of strange to say when you think about SK now. They've played all year long, but they weren't scared of, you know, doing the dirty in the early stages, whereas the old SK were like, okay, we're just going to sit back and be a passive farming team until we somehow have the power to team fight.
Yeah, so obviously pick and ban's about to get underway. What are we expecting? What are the key focuses in this ban phase?
So Zillion has to be a ban from SK Gaming. I would expect a Orianna ban actually coming in from ROCCAT side, and of course, as we just saw, Nidalee against fredy. Source was so annoying against ROCCAT yesterday on Nidalee. Freddy's not going to see it a single time.
Well, we saw this yesterday. A lot of focus on fredy. That is how Alliance managed to crack down SK Gaming. And again, with all 3 top laner bans from ROCCAT, they're doing exactly the same thing. Focus on fredy. Tristana, the final ban as well, coming through. That means it's going to be an AD carry first pick.
And this should also mean for fredy. I mean, if you look at the champions he normally plays, Renekton has then been his go-to champion when everything else is kind of gone. But Renekton in this meta here, if you just lane stop on him, he will never have the impact in late game, as we see some other top laners happen. We see all these late game comps now, where Renekton doesn't really fit in.
So on the other side then, ROCCAT taking Morgana and also taking Elise. Elise was banned out pretty much all day yesterday against Jankos. That is his first blood machine, although he also showed us they can come up with the goods on Kha'Zix as well. But for me, Elise is Jankos' best support by a long way.
And these 2 picks right here are the picks ROCCAT used in the quarterfinals to beat Super Hawk Crew pretty much every game. And it was the same tactic. We always talk about it with Jankos, how he runs into the lane and you just hard push it up. You kill the towers early. You don't really focus too much on ganking, except for maybe the first blood. And then it's just all about tower pushing. Morgana and Elise is one of the best combinations for not only picking off people, but also pushing towers.
Well, Svenskeren gets his hands on Kha'Zix. It was a key part in every game yesterday, really, all throughout the best of 5, 2 best of 5 series. Kale also picked in. That's going to be nRated. He hovered over Orianna for a while. We talked about how it could be potential ban. What has surprised me here, 5 picks come through, 3 bans on the top lane, yet nobody's gone top.
Unless it's going to be killed top lane here. It could also be killed support, of course. We do already have the AD carry first pick from SK Gaming because they banned Tristana. So far, the 2 players we were looking at in terms of champion pool was Celaver, because he only played 2 AD carries so far, and then Corgi was going to be his like mid-game AD carry as the 3rd one. And then, of course, fredy in the top lane, and he's maybe lack of champion pool, which is what ROCCAT was hitting at here. So very expected here from Celaver if he does log into Corgi. It's going to be his go-to champion, some mid-game power. Now you have the Orianna, fine in the mid-game too, but even better in the late game, and of course in the laning phase. So Overpow now, finally getting a champion where he's actually supposed to win the mid lane on farm.
And that's the thing, he has been consistently behind every other mid laner in Europe at 10 minutes, at 20 minutes. Basically, whenever you look at CS, Overpow is generally behind, and Orianna is a champion where he shouldn't really be behind. It's a champion where he should be able to rack up big numbers. We'll see about that one. For SK Gaming, they locked in pretty quickly here, taking the Ahri for Jesiz, who had a fantastic win rate yesterday. Ahri was really a big thing in that in that SK vs Alliance game. Mundo also then taking fredy up top.
Alright, so fredy can be pretty happy. Getting Dr. Mundo when there's 3 bans to top lanes is not exactly a bad deal here for SK Gaming. They will have the super tank for late game, where on the other side, for ROCCAT, because Mączka is being banned away, you don't really have this late game tank option as we see on the side of SK Gaming. Could of course be an Alistar if you wanted to play it into it, but it seems like he doesn't want to do that.
Yeah, so it's going to be Lulu, the final choice in that top lane. As you mentioned, it does take away the tank factor for ROCCAT. So, can they allow it to reach that late game? They have to surely close this one out quick.
Yeah, they definitely have to win in the mid game here and make sure they don't give SK Gaming time to scale up and get the full items. Especially the Mundo is going to be so hard to deal with. Corgi is not an AD carry who destroys tanks. We rarely see players doing King on Corgi, so it's going to be hard for Celaver in the late game if there's a fed Dr. Mundo in his face here. And SK Gaming side, Ahri has a 100% win rate in the playoffs so far. He was first picked yesterday between Alliance and SK Gaming a few times. Both Froggen and Jesiz wanted to play her, and she is so damn strong. Also setting up these picks here. You have the Kale support as like your peel and protection for your hyper carry now, or even for Dr. Mundo if he's the guy running in all alone. And then of course Svenskeren getting his Xaxus where he can get some wave clear, counter the fast push from ROCCAT they like to do, and also he can actually invade in on Elise. It's a good matchup here for Svenskeren to one-on-one Elise in the jungle.
I also think, looking at the AD carries, that honestly Kog'Maw is going to outscale. They want to go late game when they've got the Mundo in there. Kog'Maw is going to be a big factor in this game. ROCCAT aren't a team that win games generally in the mid game. They almost always take it to the very late game, whether that's really through their choice or not.
Yeah, obviously, you know, the ban towards it, first pick, it's got to be a big deal. Which champion select do you think has made you win the vote? Who is it going to be? SK win or ROCCAT win? That's the question. Hashtag SK or hashtag ROC win. And send them to, don't forget to put LOL Esports in there as well. We'll see how it works out as this game gets underway. ROCCAT were the favorites, but only just.
Only
won over a lot of fans yesterday. Yeah, won over a lot of fans yesterday. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Game 1 about to get underway. SK Gaming starting out on the blue side up against ROCCAT. A final spot at the World Championships is at stake here for the European number 3 seed. Who will it be? ROCCAT took the number 3 position back in the spring. Can they do it again?
And if you look at their bottom line here from SK Gaming, it's actually the same setup they used against Alliance yesterday when they played, where they played Corgi and Morgana. And really likes to pick Kale into Morgana and simply just try and push the lane 24/7 into the tower, try and deny some CS from the enemy AD carry, and never really give them a chance to poke back. And also Corgi, if he's under the tower, he can't really poke the enemy AD carry because he's low range. He needs to land the rockets, he needs to land the Q, and it's easy to dodge around if you also have the minions to help you.
So let's see how this one goes. And Celaver yesterday, Tristana was of course his real big impact champion. I was banned out here today. Leaves him with Corgi after Kog'Maw was first picked by SK Gaming. And again, ROCCAT being pretty active here at level 1. Looks like they're headed down onto the bottom side of SK's jungle. We'll see how far they go with this one. Looks like they're going to get a ward over by the Red Brush and one by the Wraith camp as well, and simply just head away.
So interesting there, sweeping lens picked up at the start by Jankos, and they cleared away that red buff ward. It has been replaced. Just saw Jesiz replacing it there. I wonder if that means they're going to try and put some fear in them, but the fact that they held on, Jesiz held on to that ward, will give them the vision back there. Interesting, you know, in starting, you don't often see the sweeping lens as their first item these days.
No, and when we actually do see it, it's often from the support, just to deny some vision down the bottom lane and potentially set up an early gank. But this time around it is for Jankos, so we have to see actually how this jungle matchup is going to work, because SK Gaming doesn't really have very strong early laners here compared to what ROCCAT has when Orianna and Lulu is in the mix. They are supposed to win the lanes, or at least do really well in the lanes, where Dr. Mundo often will end up just sitting back and try and farm as much as possible. So that should mean Svenskeren can really just invade in easily, because then ROCCAT can quickly send in both solo laners to help Jankos.
Speaking of Jankos, we'll see if he can pick up another first blood here, playing at least pretty much the machine that he's been using to get all these impressive first bloods, and really developing this ROCCAT style of early turret pressure with that ranged jungler. We'll see if he goes for that kind of thing here once again. Moving over to his red buff now after just taking the blue buff. Same can be said of Svenskeren down on the bottom side of the map, and Vander just trying to keep nRated zone. Now actually there's a good little binding on towards nRated. It's going to be a lot of damage coming out of Celaver.
Yeah, a lot reverse back on towards him to see how he sticks to that one. Also the vision, of course, they spotted Svenskeren, they had that ward in that bush, so they know he is in the lower half of the jungle, so they put the pressure on nRated early. They know he's not going to be nearby, and it also buys time for Jankos to go in towards his top lane. He's going to hold out, try and land it. This cocoon is going to be vital. Glitterlance could slow down, should try and force the flash out of fredy early. He's coming around, so he's going to go in towards it. Joe.
Oh, fredy here, can he get away from everything? Actually, Spinal coming in, and he waited it nicely there for the cocoon. Not sure he technically needed to flash that one there. I actually think that the cocoon was away, but either way, I mean, better safe than sorry. Yeah. The last thing that you want to do at this stage is give Jankos or anyone else, it doesn't really matter who gets the first blood, you just don't want to give it up.
If he had been stunned there, he would have died instantly from the execute of Alicia, and we're going to see this a lot. Jankos puts a lot of focus on the top lane, and we talk about how shutting down fredy can be the way to beat SK Gaming. If he's not going to beat a super tank in the mid to late game, well, ROCCAT can just roll over them here. They have a lot of damage, a lot of magic damage, however, on their side, but they do have a lot of damage in the start of these fights.
Clever used by ROCCAT. They saw Svenskeren passing by. They knew he was at the Wolves here, and they're going to go for him. They're going to try and get down on towards him. The cocoon had already been fired off by Jankos, so they're not going to build too much follow on there. Xaxus actually wasn't close enough. He used the speed up for Jankos to get close enough, instead forced him away. So, attempted counter gank didn't work.
Well, one thing it's done is send him back though, and that will be Svenskeren then out of action, so to speak, or I say that, and he actually recalls, of course, as you would naturally expect, and he now is going to go over towards the ROCCAT jungle. We said it before that Svenskeren loves a bit of a counter jungle, but he sees Jankos actually doing his Wraith Camp. Overpow actually moving up from this mid lane as well. Svenskeren will now have to back off.
And this right here is exactly why Svenskeren can go in the jungle and try and fight Jankos. He can maybe go in and place a ward and spot him and then jump out again. But you saw Overpow instantly, as Svenskeren was around the jungle, he moved from the mid lane, already pushed it in through the tower, and was ready to help Jankos. Quick 2v1, and then Svenskeren would have died. So it simply means, due to this Orianna pick in the mid lane, for now, SK Gaming is not able to do these aggressive invades in the jungle. If Jesiz, however, picks up an early kill, then he can start controlling the lane.
So let's check out this bottom lane. You know, despite the trading, obviously we saw nRated getting pressured. CandyPanda does have the CS lead at the moment. Only just, that's going to get cleared up to 33 for Celaver as he works out the tower. nRated, ballsy play, look at that. Really wants the dark binding used on him. Trying to bait it out from Vander there. But it's not going to happen. Celaver is going back, so he's going to be the first AD carry. Or is he? He's cancelled it. He's cancelled his back.
He was also just grouping up the minions on Kale, so all his AoE damage would hit every single one, and just try and fast push it into the tower because Celaver was trying to recall. He wanted to deny the entire wave here, but he actually cancelled it and stayed in lane. He does have heal, no health potion, but at least for now he can stay and farm on the tower. But this is exactly what we talk about. SK Gaming loves to do in the bottom lane when they're against Morgana. They pick the kill support and they just push the wave as much as possible. The only reason they're actually freezing it now is because Celaver was low and they were hoping he was going to step out and try and get some farm, and then they could punish him. But he's recalled, and now they actually lose some crucial time where they won't push it in.
Also see a lot of wards picked up by SK Gaming, so they want to make sure they've got vision control over the map, and probably more specifically that bottom side of things, as Vander is going to be tanking up the minions for now, making sure that they don't go underneath that turret, using his black shield there. Actually took a couple of little auto attacks from nRated as well. We will finally see Celaver get back in, not quite got his phage finished off, but also elected for second Doran's Blade.
Just needs a few combat stats in lane here, otherwise he's gonna be way too weak compared to CandyPanda, who's gonna get the Trinity Force before him if they keep this farm going as we see right now.
Speaking of combat stats, these two mid laners, looks like it's going to be Athene's for the two. Got to keep our eye on that one for ROCCAT. They could do with a Morellonomicon in there maybe for that grievous wounds. Fredy is going to need controlling somehow as it gets going. We'll keep our eye, we'll see whether Overpow wants to go for it with a Vander. Wants to maybe even build towards that later on.
Well, they do have 2 ignites here, so they have some healing reduction, but it's a good point. We can see Morellonomicon from Overpow. It will be a little bit risky, especially because he is against Ahri, and you want to get some early magic resist, so you don't. So Ahri loses her all-in potential on you, especially when the DFG should be completed from Jesiz as the second item. He normally goes Athenes into DFG. We see some mid laners go like full damage early on and just ignore the Athenes, but Jesiz is still a guy who likes to play the lane fairly safe, and we often see him put a lot of focus on just wave clearing and farming up a storm before he goes aggressive.
If only Jankos had the vision and had gone south there, he could have trapped nRated, but instead it's Jesiz he's going to try and focus on over at this Wraith. Not going to waste his smite on the big Wraith. No, looks like he's happy to let that one go. Doesn't want to get too close. The danger of Jesiz doesn't have the vision of this one. He is spotted out himself, so they know exactly where he is. And Svenskeren is a little cautious. Red buff has just spawned, and it looks like they want to try and steal it away.
Jankos coming in there, but actually the bottom lane of SK Gaming coming up there just to make sure that that buff was going to be safe. And you see ROCCAT just backing instantly out of that one. Back to the topic of the mid lane, I'd actually like to see Jesiz be more aggressive. Actually, forget that, because nRated here taking a lot of damage actually from Jankos, who's pretty much out of mana. CandyPanda has now shown himself from that bottom side as well, so ROCCAT do have to back away. But my point that I wanted to make there, I'd like to actually see Jesiz be more aggressive, because Overpow is such a passive mid lane, and we actually saw it yesterday that if you get ahead of him, if you're able to kill him off once or twice, you can do it over and over and over again and get a real good lead.
It is just hard because he's playing Orianna, so he's one of the strongest laners we have in this mid lane here. And he can also stay and just use the ball to farm. Svenskeren is now doing his standard second red buff spawning in the game. He will always be there. Apparently he even does it in solo queue. He will tell his laners, push your lane now at 7 minutes, I'm gonna go invade the red buff every single time. And once again he's there. Jesiz instantly pushed to mid wave, and now wanna join Svenskeren here. Oh, he needs to be careful. Overpow
very dangerous, yeah. Overpow comes around, puts the offensive ball into Jeziz's face. That will be Jankos who will pick up the red buff with the smite.
And it's good to see ROCCAT doing the homework, predicting all these invades from SK Gaming, picking strong side lanes as well, so they can avoid Jankos falling behind due to Svenskeren being so aggressive here. So nice play by ROCCAT defending the red buff and making sure Svenskeren doesn't get the same start he got against Alliance, where he always managed to get a lot of early farm and maybe even an early kill.
You have to feel that homework, well, I mean, at this stage of the year, homework has to be done. There's no doubt about that one, but SK have been a bit of a thorn in the sides of ROCCAT, you know, not done well against them in terms of the both splits, not also done well if we look back to the playoffs last year. They beat them in the playoffs, sorry, not last year, last split, in the spring split, where ROCCAT then ended up finishing third after beating Alliance. They've been a bit of a bogey team, to be honest, for ROCCAT.
And to be honest, it's always been about the fact that Fredy, Jesiz and Svenskeren together could actually shut down the solo lanes of ROCCAT and Jankos at the same time. Because Fredy and Jesiz used to just pick lane bullies all the time. Like, remember when Jesiz only played Xaxus and Orianna pretty much every single game. And it just worked against ROCCAT because Jankos could never really do anything. This time around, they haven't managed to shut him down. And we've talked enough about these two junglers now.
Oh.
Well, not enough.
No, I just briefly want to mention that Svenskeren was so stealthy he completely fooled that cameraman there. It was quite funny to see. So, bottom lane, we talked about how this needs shutting down. CandyPanda is starting to dominate this lane, honestly, over Celaver. Celaver was forced packing once again to go back to buy, and you can see he's got that phage now picked up with the seconds, Dorans, and the boots, but he is slipping behind in CS against a lane that shouldn't probably be doing as strongly as it is right now.
Well, it's simply due to Kayle support and the fact they can push in the wave every single time. Morgana won't really be able to respond because you max your binding on Morgana, not your W, so you don't get the extra wave clear. And then Corki's just forced to sit on the tower or behind the minions, and then you can't really trade with the rockets properly. You have lower range than CandyPanda as well, making it very hard. And of course, nRated can smack you in the face a few times if you get too close. And we actually did see Celaver. As soon as the lane was pushing down to SK Gaming side and it was freezing, he left the bottom lane. That's where they actually invaded onto the red buff and tried to pick up a kill because he couldn't stay in the lane, which is a big issue and another reason he's even further behind.
Trying to push out a little bit there. Celaver actually going back to ward inside of the tri-bush, and there is the binding landing. It's going to be a bit of free damage basically from ROCCAT side, but CandyPanda landing a couple of good ultimates there. We'll make sure that that trade isn't for nothing, but here is Jankos. Scoreboard still sits at 0-0. See if he can get in here, pick up, or help at least pick up a first blood for ROCCAT.
Jankos sneaks in unseen so far. No wards picking up his position. CandyPanda was to step forward just a little bit. The minion wave was cleared out. Now he's going to come through. They're just going to back off. Svenskeren still unseen just behind as well, so he's staying around. It looks like he's happy that this is going to be safe at the tower.
So both junglers just looking there for a chance of a gank, and then moving away once again. We do see Lulu build Morel and Omicron, as you talked about earlier. So that's going to work great against the Dr. Mundo, and Xaxus probably doesn't feel he needs the defensive stats anyway. Fredy can never really get to him. They're just standing there, clearing the waves. Fredy's staying on the tower. His tower up in his top lane actually is down to about 15% HP, because every single time the wave gets pushed down, he will farm it, but he can't do it fast enough for Xaxus to not even hit the tower. So it will actually go down within the next few waves, unless SK send Svenskeren up there.
That may well give them the advantage. ROCCAT could force this one, the Dragon. They could take tower at the same time, and if teleport is used by Fredy, it's not available for Xaxus. But SK, I don't think are aware too much of this one. Ward was just cleared out, so I think they're going to have a rough idea on the timing. It's going very low, and Svenskeren is going to be pretty too late for the smite party here.
Far too late for that one. ROCCAT pick up the first Dragon of the game, and definitely a big bonus for them. And this is more of the SK
Panda's like, get off my pink ward, whereas Jankos has just left him. It's like, come on guys, defend this ward, it cost me a lot of gold.
Really wanted to keep that one alive there. Actually, Celaver stuck around in lane there mostly, whilst that Dragon was going down. Still a good chunk of CS behind there, 15 CS now actually.
Well, this Dragon, it was too easy for ROCCAT to take it. If we actually do look at nRated at the moment, he doesn't have any wards on his sidestone. And it's been like this for the last 5 minutes. I just went back in the game to check. He's actually been sitting with an empty sidestone for 5 minutes now. Not been back to base for a long time. He racked up a lot of gold as well, which simply meant there was no wards in the rear area. So as soon as Jankos moved in there, placed the pink and noticed, okay, they don't have any vision right here, we can just start it. Nobody from SK Gaming, except for Svenskeren when it was too late, actually expected the Dragon to be taken here. So a bit too easy from ROCCAT. Not enough wards, as we normally see from SK Gaming.
Yeah, it is a common problem that we saw up to about 20-minute mark. They were generally okay, and then they were slipping away in the ward control. If they're slipping away this early, it is a big, big problem. Top lane, Morel and Omicron now completed along with Source Boots for Xaxus, and Fredy, he's got that Spirit Passage, slowly becoming that gigantic, annoying tank that we know he will be. Could probably go fairly heavy on the magic resist as well, judging by obviously ROCCAT's got 3 members with the magic.
Yeah.
And well, technically, 4.5 technically.
Yeah, 4.5. So it's going to be full magic resist from the side of SK Gaming, making it even harder for ROCCAT in the late game to deal with them. We already talked about how Celaver is going to get outscaled, Xaxus is going to get outscaled as well, and you get pretty much full magic damage. So it's going to be very, very hard in the late game for ROCCAT to kill the members of SK Gaming. And while they did have to focus on Fredy in the start of the first game from Jankos, and they will be able to take his top tower whenever they want to, they're not stopping Fredy from farming. So he's already at the Spirit Visage. He can go for his second tank item, potentially before the next Dragon even spawns or get close to it, which is going to make him pretty strong already in the mid game.
Yeah, when your top laners are almost touching on the mid lane CS, and that just shows you how really quiet that top lane's been, or maybe we should say how quiet the junglers have been at this point. Jankos, of course, did come down to the bottom. Svenskeren was in there as well, but not really too much activity coming out of the jungle. And we can see that Jankos going for his favorite build, I think it's safe to say by now. Getting some good damage in there early with a Spectral Wraith and that Haunting, guys. This is going to be the first turret of the game, though. Going over to SK Gaming.
Yeah, solid work from SK. They've been pounding away on that bottom turret. That buys time for Jankos to head towards the top. Remember, as you mentioned, this tower is pretty low in this top lane, so only going to take a couple of hits. Sadism's already been used by fredy, so he's got no ultimate to fall back on if Xaxus were to suddenly burn down the damage. Xaxus is going to take away the white on the left-hand side. With this wave, they may well jump on fredy.
Let's see what they do. They're going in.
It's going to be bad. The tower is very, very low. Actually, they decided to just jump on him there, not finishing off the tower. Wild Growth will come in. It is Jankos that's tanking it up, but he's able to go in again, and the first blood machine does it time and time and time again.
A nice little trade here. Tower was so low, they could have instantly killed it after they took down fredy without his ulti. Now onto this mid lane here.
Oh, SK moved around on force. That's going to be a simple turret. 4 members collapsing in amongst it, but look at this. ROCCAT not done yet. They're continuing to push down the inner lane. ROCCAT realize they need to react to this. SK could sweep across the river. They are doing that. There's 3 members heading up the river right now. CandyPanda's holding busy in the mid lane. Shockwave comes out, flashed away by CandyPanda, but let's look towards that top lane at the moment because they're going to get collapsed on. Jesiz making the way across there. Jankos comes in towards them. Charm does not land. He's going to come rappel back down there. Flash is available for him if he needs it, if he can get safety.
Oh, can he get there?
But no! Not quite enough damage. He didn't get the support, but ROCCAT do get the middle turret down, and now they have 3 turrets themselves.
So the teams here are trading towers, they're trading kills. First we saw fredy go down the top lane, tower went down as well. At the same time, the bot lane tower went down, and then instantly SK Gaming said Jankos is in the top lane. He won't be able to help the mid lane. It was already low. Jesiz had pushed it in, and Easy just rotated from the bottom lane to mid lane. Picked up another tower, and now Dragon spawning in about a minute.
And that's the thing that ROCCAT seems to do so well. Very reactive plays there, pushing into the top lane. You also have to say that SK just didn't really react at all. Or, well, obviously they did, they went in later and got the kill, but it was very, very slow. They lost the inner turret in the top lane before they even started to move away, trading it for that inner middle turret, which some would argue could be just as important there once those middle turrets start to fall. Allows you to start working your way through the enemy jungle, but for now, despite the fact that we are 5 towers into this game, low scoring, still quite cautious.
A lot of focus on just like farming in the lanes. We haven't seen a lot of jungle action, and then either take this safe ganks where you basically run in and just kill the tower and not go for a straight up gank. Now we're gonna have the dragon spawning very soon. We talk about ROCCAT in the mid game. They have to be able to go in here and take this fight against SK Gaming. If they lose it, they will fall very far behind and also get outskilled here. And Xaxus is sitting in the top lane, no teleport. fredy can join in for the dragon here as soon as it spawns, and it also means SK Gaming is feeling very confident, so they move straight into the river and place the wards because they know fredy can join in at any time and be 5 versus 4.
Problem is, of course, Xaxus has put a lot of pressure in that top lane. They did just take down the inner turret, so if fredy goes away, they are leaving an inhibitor turret exposed, and it is Xaxus still shoving out that wave. He's got that needlessly large rod now, so a lot of magic damage. We'll see whether he makes his way down the river. Ward spots out. SK clocked out on the side there. Big item completed for Overpow should this fight happen. That shockwave will be doing some serious damage. Xaxus caught out a little bit, but sidesteps it. Wild Growth has been used out, and the flash is going to pounce on towards this one. Overpow forced the flash as well. And that may well be the trigger. No! That's going to be a quick shockwave. Used out because ROCCAT are trying to buy time to take down the dragon. They're sneaking it fast in the background. They hit and run, they're gone.
Wow, okay, so ROCCAT actually used 2 big ultis here, used 2 flashes. It would have meant they couldn't actually fight for the dragon, but because SK Gaming sent every single member to go and try and kill Xaxus here, Celaver, Vander, and Jankos could just sneak the dragon. Nice play. They need to get into this mid lane though, because there's a lot of people pushing from SK Gaming.
And they are going to start to move back into that one. Xaxus' TP is still down, so he's not going to be able to get in unless he walks away from that top lane and then most likely gives up the turret to the Mundo. Trying to get a max range charm in there, but Jankos stood at the front. And yeah, wave clear is there, that's for sure, with the likes of Lulu from that top side of it, from Oriana. It's not going to be too difficult to be holding on to these turrets. There's a lot of kind of all-in potential, especially when you think of the likes of Svenskeren diving in Mundo, tanky as you like going underneath the tower, and Jesiz to obviously get in there for the charm, and then you're going to see Overpow going down in the mid lane, completely caught out of position there. And again, a big play out of Jesiz. That's the kind of thing that Jesiz needs to do, that we don't see too often from him. I have to say, we heard it earlier that Alliance, they rely on Froggen to do that kind of thing. SK don't necessarily rely on Jesiz to do that, but if he does do it, it gives them a massive boost.
And it really seems like Jesiz, whenever he plays Ahri, is the only assassin where he can really take control of the game. Because we have seen him play Zed in the past where it didn't work out for him. Ahri, again, you need to get these picks here, you need to catch people off guard, land a charm, and then you can just burst them down like we just saw him do here onto Overpow. So been working out also against Alliance with the Ahri pick for Jesiz here. Need to keep doing it. Now you also need to be careful.
Oh, I'm not sure Jankos wants this one solo. Look at that. Jesiz turns it around, puts the charm down. Might be able to take it down Jankos. Instead, he gets slowed by Xaxus. The rest of SK moving back in. Cocoon is going to be jumped in there. Svenskeren leaps on, but he gets a dark binding in the meantime. fredy trying to zone out Xaxus. SK, they bought themselves some time. What I was about to say is the difference between these two teams is SK will make a kill and get an objective. You just saw it there in the mid lane. Tower. And actually, ROCCAT were very much in danger. If that last charm, Jesiz fired it off and it missed by a whisker. Then it got that would have been inhibitor gone.
And that's just great play by SK Gaming. Also looking at the fact that 2 flashes were used earlier by Overpow and Xaxus. Yes, okay, SK Gaming lost the dragon due to the chase, but it simply meant they could go into the jungle. They could suddenly look for a fight, and we saw Jesiz spot out Overpow. There was no flash, instant just kill him there, get the tower as well. And while SK Gaming as a team, we always talk about how bad they are at warding. Try and look at their items now. This is the first time in many games I actually see Jesiz and fredy buy wards. So it seems like they've been looking at the games yesterday and realized we need to have more wards on the map, especially when we play these assassins in the mid lane. And then we can use the lead we get early on, or if we have the pressure, play some deep wards and get the kills on objectives.
And I think this fits SK's style. This is the SK play style that was so good in the spring split for them, and they've kind of struggled to find that form here in summer, but this is what they did really, really well back then, is get towards this mid-game and then even going into the late game as well. Get the kill, literally just one kill, and then just push these towers down, really pushing those objectives very, very quickly. Svenskeren not quite going to get hit there by the binding. 3 men up on that top side of the map. 4 men now, even if you can. Jankos in. I was going to say SK wisely backing away, but actually they're going aggressive into the jungle.
And this is the thing. SK are what, 3,000 gold behind, but you don't feel it. They are the aggressors. They are the ones looking for team fights. Shockwave used on nRated doesn't have the damage. He still holds on to intervention. Ballsy play by nRated. Didn't want to waste it there. Took a lot of pressure, but he's happy to just sit at the back. He's the support. If you're going to focus the support, then the rest of the team are just going to come in, sweep around, and take another free tower.
And because SK Gaming is controlling the jungle of ROCCAT here with all their members, with some of the wards they just placed, they can go between mid lane and top lane. So as soon as Overpow walked in there, tried to kill nRated, didn't work for him. He was in a bad spot. He could never make it to top lane in time anyway, so he just had to go back to mid lane. Easy tower picked up by SK Gaming. And while again they are behind in gold, they are fully controlling the map and the jungle here, and ROCCAT is just sitting back. They're basically waiting to land a binding like we just saw here, if they actually want to engage and try and kill someone from SK.
Xaxus actually got a lot of damage at this point. It's on Morellonomicon into the death cap. His opposite number, fredy, said, I like Giant's belt, so I'm going to buy 2 of them. I mean, Mundo has got a bit of
big pants.
He's got like a Joe Miller waist going on. You have to get 2 belts and link them together,
Don't be so harsh on yourself. You look beautiful.
Chain them together. So, CandyPanda, let's see where he builds and continues, because it looks like Celaver is going to be an eye edge, maybe come out after that Trinity Force. Xaxus in his top lane, got himself that death cap a while back as well. Jesiz, though, he is possibly the key for SK, opening up, unlocking the game with that charm. Rabadon's death cap, Deathfire Grasp picked up. A lot of damage on him, and we'll see where it works out. Overpow's been, as we've said so many times, fairly passive, fairly, I don't exactly try to think of the word, but basically he's not been involved in this entire game.
Passive is a great word.
Passive really is kind of fits it pretty well. 12 seconds on the Dragon. ROCCAT snuck it last time. I don't think SK are going to allow that to happen this time around. There's a lot of ward placement coming in around this river area. They have the positional advantage.
We still do see a lot of the big items for ROCCAT here, so they are still strong if they get a standard 5 versus 5 here. They've been using 2 ultis from Overpow so far in the game, and they've done nothing at all. every single time. He needs to land a perfect one here. And ROCCAT, of course, because their combo is built around picking off targets with like Jankos or Vander landing their binding or the cocoon. Otherwise, they actually have to wait for SK Gaming to engage onto them and just like kite it out, get a good position for the shockwave, and then re-engage as soon as they land all the ultis.
Jez has got a DFG in there as well, so he needs to be hunting. You can see him actually up in the jungle then, waiting off to the side just to hope that someone comes around that they can pick up. The Dragon, of course, in the meantime, did go over to SK Gaming. In terms of gold now, they're closing in. It's just 1,000 difference. ROCCAT still holding on to the lead, but slowly but surely the map is just being taken away from them. They're losing tower here, tower there, Dragon here, Dragon there. And at some point, they're going to be sat in their base thinking, what the hell happened to us?
They're basically just so far behind in terms of vision control and wards on the map. Same around the Dragon. I mean, look at the area here. Blue wards everywhere from SK Gaming. 2 wards from ROCCAT placed around their own blue buff. I mean, they can't use that for anything. So as soon as SK started the Dragon, ROCCAT couldn't find an opening to engage in because you're going to run straight into an Ahri. She's going to land a charm in your face and you're going to die, which means fight is lost. So they had to just stay back, couldn't find an opening. Again, they don't have any real engage unless they land a binding or cocoon. But to do that, you need wards on the map. You need to see where SK Gaming is going or moving around, and potentially hope a support is going to face check you, which he didn't.
Jez is caught out with a dart binding. Now they're going to follow through. Shockwave will pull him down. Intervention, though, is popped, and that's a lot of ultimates used. Jankos, where's he going to go from this rappel? He's just going to drop straight down in amongst them. Fredy and Svenskeren pouncing on towards Vander. They're going to chase him down. He's going to get the slow on towards Vander. There's no tower to fall back on. Wild Growth used on the support to save his life. That's another ultimate burn. ROCCAT are completely spit here.
Decent chunks from the side though, and actually Celaver decides it's not even worth it at this point. They need to get around and defend this inhibited turret, and ROCCAT are just nowhere near this one. SK right on top of it. No shockwave, of course, for Overpow after it was used earlier. SK losing a good chunk of health though. See most of them down to around about half binding. Will land onto CandyPanda. They're going to try and get on him. He will fly. Flash in from Celaver. They do manage to get the kill. In fact, it was Vander that did steal it away in the end. But Celaver's been the man of this fight. Will Valkyrie in. There's the charm going on to him. That should slow him down enough for SK to get away.
They've got to keep chasing. They want to force them out. They need to get something from this one. They've just lost their inhibitor turret. If they could continue burning them down, they may have been able to sneak the Baron. But again, SK disengage. A single charm from Jesiz onto the AD carry, stop them dead in their tracks.
And this KO pickup here for nRated has been so important because, again, whenever a binding or a cocoon lands, nRated is there. He's ready with the ulti. So even though Shockwave is used, even though ROCCAT just used all the damage on this one member, instantly we get the ult from nRated. It's only the one guy being locked up. As soon as he's out of the binding, out of the CC, the ulti wears off from KO, and he's free to just either step away or actually re-engage like we saw Jesiz do here before. So this KO ult has been working really well against Morgana. Not only in the laning phase, but also in terms of ROCCAT trying to find these picks with these two, Elise and Morgana, and it's just not been paying off, and they haven't been getting the team bites. SK Gaming have constantly they're actually just chasing them. We never get this full-on 5 versus 5, where the comp from ROCCAT could also be very strong as long as they can kite. They never get the chance.
Kite is very strong as well with SK. We've seen time after time those Void Spikes, Cleavers, Charms coming down, and very hard to chase into SK Gaming without, number one, taking too much damage in there as well. And I've got a feeling that SK just going to do that this entire time, you know, go in there, push that turret down, wait for ROCCAT to start chasing and say, no, you know, you're going to chase us back, but we're just going to slowly but surely back away. In fact, they're now moving over towards the Baron there is. They get clear out there from SK Gaming, so they got full vision control of that Baron area. One over the back as well will spot Vander coming in to put one down.
And that's what we've talked about, the vision control. You know, SK coming in, ROCCAT not defending their wards at all. SK complete vision control, like starting to set up for a Baron potential here. ROCCAT come in, they sneak in, get a ward down, but that's immediately cleared by SK. And ROCCAT just sat again, well, we can't see what's going on, we don't know what's happening. SK are fully in control of this game now, despite the fact it is, what, only 300 gold in ROCCAT's favor.
So while SK can actually group up and go for this open inhibitor, they're gonna have a hard time pushing down towers because there's so much wave clear on the side of ROCCAT here. So if SK ever groups up in one lane, ROCCAT is there to defend. They can just instant kill the minions. So we actually do see SK realizing, fair enough, we can't really take down the towers. We can either go for open inhibitor or we can try and bait the Baron here. That's gonna be the two options. They need to catch out ROCCAT outside the base or under their own tower if they feel like fredy can go in for the dive, get a kill, remove some of the wave there, and then you can start taking the towers here. So that's simply why we're seeing SK Gaming setting up around this Baron here as well.
And Mundo is slowly but surely turning those 2 giant belts from earlier into a lot more than that. Already got the Warmog's armor complete. Randuin's will be coming in here next, and that is a tanky Mundo. Is at that point now where you just, I want to say ignore him. You can't really ignore Mundo. That's the sad thing about it, because he's in your face constantly, sticks to whoever he decides to go for. But so very difficult to actually end up taking down. Morellonomicon from Xaxus definitely going to be helping out, but the jungle is starting to be overrun here by SK, and looks like they're going to make the natural progression towards that top inner turret.
And they're slowly stepping further and further into the jungle, try to clear the wards. Take a 1 down here from Vander, so at least can see SK move between the mid and top lane now. But it's so good for fredy to play against so much magic damage, because it opens up again. Spirit Vision first item, perfect with Dr. Mundo, you get the health regeneration, and at the same time you get Warmogs again. Your Q, your cleaver scales on your HP even better. And can an AP champion who doesn't have any % magic damage burst down someone like Dr. Mundo at this point? Not gonna happen.
Well, all the focus around the Baron buff area has left the Dragon completely untouched. It spawns now, and that's not what SK care about. They're on the Baron. ROCCAT nowhere near this, being zoned out completely by fredy. He is running basically as a bouncer right now for SK. That is a quick and easy Baron for SK. Look at him, entire team on top of him. He's just like, yeah, whatever, you know, gonna kill me. Great.
He died.
We already took the Baron.
Yeah, really just basically blocking with the power of him. We see that the phosphorus bomb coming over the top from Celaver. ROCCAT realizing that they've lost out on that Baron. Obviously with that Morellonomicon, it becomes a lot harder for him to actually be tanking and regenning that entire time. There's the jump in, they're going for Overpow, and it is going to be the charm that gets it. And very early,
this is 4 members.
Svenskeren. This could be real bad for ROCCAT. There's the second kill. The reset's coming for Svenskeren.
He's not going to get away from this one. There's the flash. Svenskeren continues to chase on towards him. He will have a leap in a couple of seconds. He chooses to just step away there. The rest of SK come in though. The inhibitor is wide open, and as you just pointed out, that was a 4v5, and SK just dominated the fight.
Yeah, there was a ward in the bush here. Overpow, he was running as the last member from ROCCAT down towards this Dragon here. Jesiz instantly just goes for him. There's a pink ward here in the bush. Look at Overpow trailing behind, jumps him, he's going down instantly, no protection for him, no chance to even wild go for him because Xaxus wasn't in range, and then SK Gaming just keep on chasing. They have the Baron buff, they've shown they're so strong in these team fights. And this mid game where Celaver could have made an impact on the Corki, it never really happened.
Problem is though, even if you'd have gone something into the late game like we saw him so well on that Tristana, if we think back to yesterday, the way it's going here, they're not going to get towards a late game period where he's going to be so strong. They've just not been able to capitalize on the power that he should really have. If you look at down his items there, looks like the Infinity Edge will be coming out next year. He did get a Vamp Scepter halfway through to keep himself some sustain going, but then you look towards Mundo and you think Randuin's Warmog, Spirit Visage. It's not easy to kill him. We saw it during that last Baron takedown from SK Gaming that they sent fredy in. It takes him so long to kill him off, and he's such a pain with his cleavers that they can just basically take objectives while he's just tanking on the team.
And while this game is not being CandyPanda, who's been the guy to carry, Jesiz has been doing a fantastic job on Ari here. But the fact that SK Gaming banned Tristana, first picked the hyper carry, and suddenly Celaver had to go for Corki. There was nothing left for him to play. If you look on the side of CandyPanda, he's played Twitch as well, he's played Jinx as well in the playoffs. So even if ROCCAT decides to fully ban 80 carries, there will still be a late game carry ready for CandyPanda to pick up. And we can say the same for Celaver. That's going to be a big deal in the pick and bans going into the next few games.
Yeah, it's what we noticed long ago throughout the season that Celaver was limited on his pull, despite this great performance yesterday, it seems, again. And I gotta wonder whether Jankos, could have maybe helped focus that bottom lane earlier on. They didn't really put any pressure on CandyPanda and nRated. SK, look at this, off the side, Charm lands on towards Xaxus, instantly they react and pounce on towards him. Wild Growth comes out, Jesiz is actually caught in a good dark binding, but there's just no follow-up. They haven't got the damage. CandyPanda actually flanking round, that's unusual. The AD carry's not really the guy that should be doing that.
Well, I'm apparently saying don't need to stay passive on this one. We can see that the Nexus turrets are taking chunks of damage now as the super minions start to come in there. And you're going to have to force them off. And I think this is a scenario where ROCCAT are going to eventually have to say, guys, we have to leave this tower. We have to let that one go down to defend the base.
So while they could defend the first wave with all the wave clear, as soon as they had to use the wild growth, it wasn't up anymore, any longer. Celaver is very low in mana. They just had to back away from this tower here, give it up to SK Gaming, and that's what they can keep doing because SK Gaming are so far ahead. Again, not necessarily in terms of gold, but just because their late game comp is so much better, the gold counts even more for them.
Well, this middle inhibitor, it will be respawning at some point shortly. Svenskeren's the man in the mid lane, pushing, helping those super minions keep the damage down. CandyPanda comes in, fredy tanks up a couple of the hits, and this inhibitor turret in his top lane is not going to be much longer in the world. Jesiz's charm does not land, but his burst damage does, and Jankos takes that. Again, another couple of shots come in. Svenskeren pulls ROCCAT to the side. They continue to siege, and slowly but surely that tower is falling.
Down to about half HP now. Svenskeren in the meantime pushing these super minions on through into the base. So ROCCAT again gonna be faced. Apparently my fractions are a little bit off because that's definitely not half HP. That's about 2 auto attacks here from CandyPanda, and that one's gonna go down. Super minions have to be dealt with. Just forget super minions. Svenskeren has to be dealt with. He's on the Nexus turrets himself, and ROCCAT are trying to hold on to the inhibitor turret. Priorities.
Priorities indeed. What are they doing? He's been flanking around that whole side. 2 more auto attacks from CandyPanda is all it's going to take. Jankos, he's the man. He's going to leap in towards it. Svenskeren jumps on him right now. This is a jungle battle, duel back and forward, and Jankos may not well win it. The inhibitor turret falls on the left-hand side. Svenskeren stealths himself up. Jankos will not fall back on towards him, but the damage is done, and Svenskeren backs off.
So the tower in top lane is alive. It's now all about inhibitor here for SK Gaming. They are fairly low in mana, CandyPanda as well. This might be the chance to fight for ROCCAT. And then Jankos almost dies.
Almost dies. Putting that disclaimer there right at the very last second, and Jankos doing exactly the same with a nice little repel to get away from Jesiz, who actually flashed for that one. He did take down the inhibitor as well, so that is good news for them. But that top turret, I'm not sure how it quite survived, but the important thing is that it did actually survive going in there. And there must be a decent chunk of gold here for SK Gaming to be going home and spending. And as I say, you can see a couple of them start on 1700 gold, and the items are just going to start flowing for them at this point.
Yeah, they were sieging for a long time there, making full use. The Baron will be back up in a minute. ROCCAT desperately forcing themselves out, get the wards down around that pit. They know this SK could well be focusing straight towards it. They've pushed the top wave out, they pushed the bottom wave out. They're trying to do the same against the super minions in that mid lane, forcing every little thing they can make out of it. They really, really, really want to catch someone out. Maybe an nRated sneaking in to put some wards down, or a CandyPanda walking unawares into the bush.
Get the butterfly.
Oh, shows himself too early.
CandyPanda there, still the guy. Has been in the scene for many, many years here. He's seen most things. He was also the guy where Fnatic did their clairvoyance trick in DreamHack Finals, Season 1.
He'll thank you for reminding him of that one.
Yeah, he was the guy walking in dying. So yeah, he knows about these small traps. It was pretty much what ROCCAT could do at this point. Otherwise, now they're going to be forced into a straight-up 5 versus 5 around the Baron pit. And if they lose it, game will be done.
Small correction, it was Season 2 at Gamescom. Right here, actually.
Really?
In 2012, I believe.
Huh, almost the same.
Yeah, back old El Clasico there. So, Baron is live, Dragon is spawning. ROCCAT's wards that they managed to squeeze out there. There's still 2 surviving, and they are, again, still trying to get a little trap, but it's so hard to spring a trap like that when there's living artillery, and there's a gigantic bouncer coming into your face. Svenskeren is going to jump on towards them as well. That's going to be the shockwave, not doing enough damage, and they are being forced out of that. Once fredy came in amongst 4 members, no cares given. He had his sadism running and just simply face-checked a lot.
And that was actually a good shockwave by Overpow, but if you look at every single member from SK Gaming, they all have magic resist because, well, you have 4.5 magic damage dealers on the side of ROCCAT here. So easy for SK Gaming to survive, even though it was a great shockwave from Overpow here. Nobody even dropped too low. CandyPanda has heal, has life steal, and of course nRated as well can give him a little bit of help regaining all his HP. And now on to Baron.
Baron down to half HP. Nexus Taurus in the meantime are once again going to be pressured by the Super Minis. They decide to jump away. Overpow, he is in no man's land here. And there is the ultimate used out of Jesiz. It's going to be a simple kill to put Jesiz on the rampage. And SK say, well, easy. So just gifted to them on a plate there.
Yeah.
He had no shockwave available. He used his flash to basically run away. And that is the Baron going to SK.
That was basically Overpow just trying to make a hero play in the very end, go and see if he couldn't kill someone in the back or steal the Baron. I'm not sure. The point is still for ROCCAT. They are so far behind at this point. They need a fantastic team fight or SK Gaming to make a big, big mistake here. If ROCCAT is going to come back in this game, it really does not look good at the moment.
So game one, very much in control by SK. It's actually been something that's ran throughout the game, honestly. While ROCCAT may well have stole a few little objectives here and there, a cheeky little dragon play as they drew the attention of SK up the river. It's still, that was pretty much the last play they made in this matchup because SK, even when behind in gold, have been the ones that have looked like they're going to win the game.
And while SK Gaming didn't 100% manage to shut down Jankos, he actually didn't do anything just by himself. He didn't manage to pull off any successful ganks except for the one in the top lane where he got the first blood. Otherwise, we haven't really seen Jankos. And this is what happens with ROCCAT when Jankos is not the guy who carries the early game. Because the two side lanes, or solo laners, sorry, while they did well on farm, they were extremely passive, didn't manage to do anything else on the map. Jesiz started getting a few kills on Ari and suddenly he got rolling. And down the bottom lane, they fell behind to the Kale, or to CandyPanda and nRated. Ended up losing the tower as well. So whenever Jankos is not the guy who gets some good ganks in the early game, the rest of ROCCAT just looked very, very passive and also lost the battle for wards, which is pretty weird considering ROCCAT is one of the best teams normally at placing wards.
Well, SK are moving in to get rid of that inhibitor, obviously respawning in. The Super Minions have already caused ROCCAT a whole host of problems. Can they finish off the inhibitors? Svenskeren actually taking a good bit of damage there, and that shockwave, don't forget, is available here for Overpow. It's going to take a massive one to actually help them out, but even the last one, which was very good from Overpow, you have to give him the credit where it's due, hitting 3 men inside of the jungle. Didn't really do all that much damage because of the magic resist that they've been building up.
You know, ROCCAT keep doing this combo there, the Cocoon, Dark Binding, double CCing someone, but there's just no follow-up anymore from ROCCAT. They keep landing there. They just did on fredy. Look at fredy, he's back to full hit points already. Intervention's always there to fall back on as well. Another inhibitor goes down as fredy just stands and face tanks all of ROCCAT, while the rest of SK just chip away and melt down the base. ROCCAT are absolutely helpless here as SK look to close out game one. It is a solid performance and a bit of a worry for ROCCAT. We said it from the very beginning though, back in pick and ban. How are they going to deal with fredy on Mundo? They banned out 3 top laners and still waited to counterpick.
They just, I mean, they took his tower in the top lane, they killed him once, but he was even in farm with Xaxus for the entire time. What is the reason to pick Lulu then? If you're not even going to try and bully and shut down the Dr. Mundo up in the laning phase? Yeah, okay, sure, you have a lot of utility in team fights, but you're never really going to have a real tank because Lulu is your top laner at the moment and you have the least jungle. So fredy, as long as he just picked up all the farm he could in the lane, he got early Spirit Visage, then he built in towards the Warmocks, the double Giants build, and from there on, he was just unkillable.
And I think that's the point of it, that Lulu had to bully Mundo, slow him down from getting to this stage where, to be honest, I mean, this is kind of the composition that you exactly don't want to play against a Mundo, which is full of magic damage, even from the AD carry. And the thing is, he got to that stage, and Corki never really had his time to shine in this one either. You know, if we were now looking at a Tristana or maybe a Vayne as well, obviously that'd be a little bit more vulnerable in this composition, they would be doing a lot more. I mean, the Rockets going through don't really dent anybody on that SK team.
And the gold graph we just saw there, you know, kind of basically shows what exactly we talked about. You know, ROCCAT needed to win early. They had a 5,000 gold advantage, yet never made use of it, never at any time looked like they were going to go for it. They are going to try and go in.
That was 2 ult, by the way.
A risk play comes out, it doesn't work out, and sure as hell, SK will punish them here. They're just going to pace on through and rush into the base. The Super Minions were already on the Nexus turrets. They're going to take down. It is going to be ROCCAT going out in game 1. It's a best of 5 though, plenty of time to turn around. Their coach Veggie is going to be having a look at this one and having a long, hard think, because SK Gaming, they were in full control of that game, even when they were 5,000 gold behind.
And it actually almost felt like, while ROCCAT were trying to ban out fredy, they also banned out Xaxus, their own top laner, because he had the last pick. He could have taken Dr. Mundo earlier if they wanted the late game tank, because it was picked by fredy in the last rotation by SK Gaming there, so there's options for ROCCAT to take it. Instead they waited, wanted to last pick the top lane, end up saying, we actually don't have anything we can play into this Mundo now. Let's just try Lulu here, try and bully him early on. Also remember, Lulu was nerfed even more here on this patch. Like, you don't get the same utility from your Q and your W anymore, so it just felt like ROCCAT in the end actually banned out themselves.
Yeah.
And also they need to really look here towards Celaver and say, what other picks do we have? Do we have any other late game carries? Can we play Jinx? Can we play at Twitch potentially here for him? Otherwise, he might be stuck on Corki for pretty much every single game.
We should look at Ari as well for Jesiz. It's a strong champion. It has been throughout the season, honestly. But 4-0-3, you can't argue with that. Did his job. Well, I say out-farmed. He kept up with Overpow pretty even, but honestly, he was the impact. He landed that charm, he got the kill, and that's what started forcing the towers. Even when they were behind, you always knew there was that play that was going to be made.
And that's the problem here, that we talked about how SK don't really rely on Jesiz to carry them in these games. They'd rather look to the likes of CandyPanda for fredy to be constantly pressuring, which this game wasn't necessarily the case. CandyPanda for me was actually fairly quiet this entire time. It was Jesiz who was constantly stalking inside of the jungle, always looking for those pickoffs, and as soon as he gets the first kill and gets his DFG, everyone then has to be so scared. ROCCAT was too scared to come out into their own jungle. They didn't ward like the ROCCAT that we were really used to be honest, and they lost control of everything just very, very easily and very quickly as well. The gold swing happened really fast.
And that's the bonus, you know, as we mentioned, they don't rely on Jesiz. So when he does make a play, suddenly like, boom, well, everybody makes control of it. And the point is, fredy, you know, he became a brick wall. He basically, he probably had a pretty boring game. If you were to ask him himself, he probably wasn't too pleased about playing Mundo in that top lane, because basically all he did was the man that stood at the front. But another solid performance from fredy. We talked about that top lane, how he dominated Wicked yesterday. And today against Xaxus basically had no impact on this game at all, and that, despite the fact he picked Lulu. We're going to go over to Shox though. She's standing by with Quick Shot on Crepo to take a look at game 1.
Thank you very much, D-Man. SK decisive win here in game 1 over ROCCAT. Let's take a look at picks and bans from ROCCAT. A very AP-heavy composition coming out. Crepo, what are the things that you noticed?
First off, I want to point out that SK played it smart. They went in with a strategy. They weren't really afraid of a single player. They just said, okay, we're going to ban Tristana. First pick Kog'Maw. We're comfortable with that. If you want to pick anything that's left, fine. But we're happy with that. And in a sense, it forces ROCCAT actually to counterban Kog'Maw, in my opinion, because I think Tristana and Kog'Maw are by far the 2 strongest AD carries right now. Unless you play a Twitch on Korean level, and you can make a lot of picks. But it's really hard to do that. So good job on SK. And then, ROCCAT came out and picked some magic damage, picked some more. And they have this beautiful protect the AD carry comp, and then they play Corki.
Yeah, I have to agree. Like, we got down to that last pick, Dr. Mundo was locked in, and we were talking backstage, what are you going to run top lane? We know Xaxus, he's run Alistar before. We were looking at it going, you've got this sort of very heavy teamfight comp, why not pick a Shyvana into it? And they went Lulu. Double AP voluntarily with Corki, who's a lot of AP, into a Mundo. There was always going to be a point where Mundo would just stand there and you couldn't kill him. What were they going to do against him? Yeah. I also want to highlight just a quick point. ROCCAT, when Celaver's uncomfortable, lose a lot of their games. ROCCAT have early picked like AD carries to get Celaver comfortable to win games, and they have to prevent doing this later, because Corki against Cog Mundo, it's not going to work.
Quick time before we actually head over into the mid game and the late game. You saw ROCCAT fall behind, and I don't think post 25 minutes they ever even pushed the lane out. A Shyvana with a Blade of the Ruined King could have done that because she can go toe-to-toe with a Mundo, pressure him out, and still be mobile enough with Dragon's Descent or whatever it's called to get back out. I don't do the ultimates.
You got it right. Well done.
I'll get there eventually. So I would have loved to see more presence coming out of ROCCAT because they played a composition. Full Magic works. You know, Morgana at least works together, but you gotta win early. And the first blood didn't came until 17 minutes into the game.
Yeah, and you're talking actually about the mid and late game, but as you mentioned, the early game, we know Jankos can be very decisive in that early game, and he was. But I do want to put a replay up on the screen for the one thing that ROCCAT did well in that early game was Jankos and story time with Krepo, because you noticed something that we hadn't before. Yeah,
I'm going to be talking a lot this game because there's so many things I like pointing out, so apologies for that. But basically what's happening right now is you see Jankos go to his blue buff, bot lane is in position to walk down the lane, and Lu is standing at the red buff. So you gotta imagine that you're SK Gaming, and if we roll the clip right now, they can't see what we're seeing, but so Jankos is gonna solo start his buff. Xaxus is showing that he's a good actor because he's gonna walk up, shield himself on the exact timing he would normally pull the buff, walk back to lane, and he'll even meet Mundo there. So in SK's head right now, Jankos started at red buff, but he's actually starting at blue. This allows bot lane to play super aggressive bottom because they expect the 3-minute gank to come bottom, so SK is going to play back. At the same time, top lane is not afraid of a gank because we know where the jungler started, and this is exactly why Jankos started with a sweeper, and you'll see it later. They'll go up on the top lane, get Mundo's flash, almost kill him even, and I really like this mind game. I really like all the pieces, the way they were playing, because it's not only Jankos doing this, it's top lane and bot lane working together. Yeah, we can actually take that replay off the screen, and something that is really impressive to note, the bait, the fact that it got a summoner spell almost led to a kill, we need to keep an eye if that continues happening, because if the team is well aware of it and all of ROCCAT are working to the same beat, that is why Jankos gets so many of these first bloods. So we'll have to keep an eye on the rest of the series.
They might be very mad at Krepo because he let the secret out. But anyway, as you mentioned, they got the flash out of Mundo when they came up there the first time. They killed him when they tower dove him next time and actually got a couple of objectives of that, which was maybe the only good thing that came out of that early game from ROCCAT, Krepo.
Well, early game, it was 17 minutes in the game.
Yeah.
I like that they turned on the switch. They went for first blood into tower, get another tower, and then SK did the same thing they did a couple of times. They tunneled. They tunneled on trying to get the kills, and then ROCCAT would react with what they call a cross-map objective, and they took a tower mid lane. Later instance, SK was chasing ROCCAT down the map with Ari again, looking for picks. ROCCAT said, fine, we'll get the dragon. So they were doing some things right, but I think they were really a victim of their composition, and later in the game, if you can't push out your side lanes, there is no way you can pressure the map because everybody will just be together.
We have to go back to the beginning of the day when we said ROCCAT, yesterday they had massive problems. They picked compositions with no wave clear. Today they pick compositions, hey, we've got wave clear, but we're going double AP with an AP non-hyper carry into a Mundo. So again, pick and ban strategy from ROCCAT is letting them down because gameplay decision making is pretty solid.
Yeah, and I'd actually like to think it could have worked out. There was one instance when they sneaked the dragon and they diverted all the attention by giving up a kill in their top jungle. They sneaked the dragon, okay, they got some gold. SK was not really ahead in gold, but if you don't fight at that time and get those kills, you won't be able to do anything.
I actually just want to take a step back, and if you look at the whole game, yes, SK were in the lead, they played safe, they had a late game scaling comp, but neither of these teams were really playing to win. It felt like they were playing to not lose.
It's very typical.
Yeah, because of the losses yesterday.
It's very typical in your first game of a BO5 that what you should do as an experienced player is play comfort picks and play calm and just feel out and just like get into the game a little bit. And you'll see SK did that. So they played comfort picks and Rated went for Kale. There were plenty of meta picks available. Kog'Maw, safe champions, long range, pretty straightforward, and late game. And ROCCAT had to do fancy stuff to be able to win this game, and that's really hard to do that in the first game of a series.
Yeah, the one thing that I also just think for ROCCAT, the style is very drastically different to what they were running yesterday. Yesterday, the Zillion pick was very, very important for Overpow. It was the game that they managed to pick up quite well. The Fizz picks did not work out for him. And now you've got away from that aggressive comp to a very reactive, sort of defensive team composition. But if you're going to do that, it has to hinge on a focal point. It has to hinge on something that whatever you're protecting is the backbone, is the core. And a Corki is not that.
No, I'd love to see. I mean, we know Celaver plays Jinx. That might have been a thing, but that is a confidence thing because Jinx, you got to be so aware of your positioning, and it's hard to pick that here in that first game of the series.
I would have liked to see Shyvana Twitch instead. Shyvana goes in, gets the Orianna ball, draws all the aggro to her, and then Twitch just puts on spray and pray and just goes mental. In worst case, you still have Black Shield and Orianna Shield for the Twitch. It should be enough. You don't need all these You don't need a triple protection comp if you're going to run a Corki. It baffles my mind because fredy even was lenient on the opposing team because he went to Giant Spells. He could have even done Spirit Visage and immediately went for Banshees, and then it would have sealed the deal as well.
Yeah, it's very rare that you can literally just look at a game straight up and say a whole thing hinges on one or two small decisions. And for fredy, we'll see what he does because he had 3 targeted bans his way, Nidalee, Aatrox, and Mączka, all taken off the table. ROCCAT felt that he was the threat. I still think Uri on Jesiz has to be a consideration. He went 4-0-3 as D-Man pointed out. You can't let him just get that super comfortable assassin because she is working for him and she is helping SK control that mid game when they find picks.
Yeah, so bottom line here, ROCCAT has to do something about their picks, and for SK, they can basically do the exact same thing, but maybe be adaptive if something crazy comes out from ROCCAT.
Yeah, I think SK should think a little more about their builds still, but maybe that's just me being personally about support itemization. I do not play Kayle, but I felt nRated went for a really early Ruby Sightstone. I would have liked to see the Mikhails rush quicker. I would have liked to see better boots, just more mobility, more deep warding, and then play with your side lanes and just put the pressure on the enemy, and then you can start rotating, because it's so hard if you're only pushing mid and then you have to wait for ages until that lane finally starts pushing and then you can slowly rotate. If you move around the map, you can put so much pressure.
I got one little thing to note. SK again, warding, terrible in the early game. It got better in the mid game, but they continue to demonstrate as a team, their warding sucks.
All right, and on that note, when we return, SK Gaming tries to keep their momentum alive, while ROCCAT will look to bounce back in Game 2. Don't go anywhere.
Tower is very, very low. Actually, they decided to just jump on him there, not finishing off the tower. Wild Growth will come in. It is Jankos that's tanking it up.
Shockwave will pull it down. Intervention, though, is popped, and that's a lot of ultimates used. Jankos, where's he going to go from this repel? He's just going to drop straight down in amongst them.
Jetting that entire time there. There is going to Overpow, and it is going to be the charm that gets it. And very
this is 4 members.
Svenskeren. This could be real bad for ROCCAT.